They told me not to. The Nintendo Switch 2. Teardown, whatever that mean. Whatever that mean. I walked through breakdown. I think that's what I think that's what that mean. I never heard a nigga say teardown though. So we finna watch the teardown version, I guess. Whatever that means.
So it's been forbidden by the Nintendo deity
Let's see what's going on, bro.
the external plastic layer over this Nintendo Switch 2 screen. But since I am not beholden to animated Newmans of the Mario world,
What is he doing? Bruh, it's niggas that don't even got one, he fucking it up.
but since to remove the external, so it's been
Bro, shit
forbidden
scraped
by the
up
Nintendo
already.
deities to remove
What
the
is he
external
doing?
plastic layer over this Nintendo Switch 2 screen. But since I am not beholden to animated
this
Newmans
going
of the Mario world, I'm just gonna do it. The Switch 2 might not survive though, so preemptive effing chat for my boy. The screen protector is extremely difficult to remove. It definitely won't be falling off on its own. Nintendo says this
Okay, that's the
plastic
screen
top layer
protector.
is here to help prevent shards of glass from going everywhere if the Switch screen gets broken, much like automotive windshields are laminated to enhance safety. This does make me think, however, if this glass underneath the plastic, the digitizer, is so susceptible to fragmenting, then it might not be glued to the LCD. This would make repairs easier, of course, but it's just one of the many answers we are looking for during this teardown.
Teardown. So he's breaking the whole thing
I am
down.
very surprised to see my razor blade still
Got
scratching
you.
the surface
Got
of
you,
the
buddy.
plastic protector, even
Got you.
after it's been removed. So either the layer under the plastic is also plastic, or we're just scratching whatever remains of the screen protector adhesive. I have so many questions, and I'll be getting all the answers here in the next few minutes. Let's start with the Joy-Cons. There are two visible tri-wing screws, the same tri-wings that Nintendo has been using in their portable system since 1989. There is another tri-wing and a silver Phillips head under the curved piece of plastic. Then the rear panel, which has the vibrator still attached, can pull away from the Joy-Con. Nintendo is calling this massive vibrator the HD.
Man, this nigga evil. Why he so calm while he tearing his fucking new Nintendo Switch 2 down and he know these bitches sold out? This nigga need his ass whooped.
Rumble 2, and it's at least twice the size of the vibrator in the Switch 1. It's a linear resonant actuator that uses force feedback.
I hope he gonna put it back together.
Of different situations. Since it's electronically started and stopped, it has a larger range of vibrations than an eccentric rotating mass vibrator. The larger size means stronger vibrations, but also quieter vibrations that can be more realistic and have faster response times. Now, I'll let other reviewers decide whether or not that's true.
Man, he talking too slow, man. We're gonna turn up the game sliders.
From the inside, the three coils of copper look absolutely incredible. The Joy-Con release lever itself can also be released at this point, along with 4 more screws that hold the Joy-Con.
Now you sound like a bot.
However,
we're gonna turn it down a little bit. Hold on. It's too fast.
And this trigger button can just pull away and unclip with a bit of force. Underneath, there's a double torsion spring that provides the button's resistance and spring back. On the Switch 1, the trigger had dual compression springs that would yeet themselves off into oblivion during removal, so I'm glad Nintendo has switched up the design. There is a water damage indicator here below those buttons, attached to the battery tray, and this will turn pink and tattle on you if the controllers get wet. Remember, there are 0 protections or warranties against liquid, so keep all your gaming above sea level. There's another 3 screws along the orange magnetical attachment point, and I can pop out a plastic bracket, move over the trigger button board, and release the top right shoulder button. This still has 2 compression springs, but they remain attached to the button itself, and that should help with reassembly, if you're into that kind of thing. The battery
this nigga, man.
It is still plugged into the Joy-Con mainboard, but we can't see any of the details or
why
since
though?
it's most definitely still glued into the tray.
Why is he doing this?
Nintendo didn't use any glue with its last generation of Joy-Con, and it's sad that they went backwards with repairability on this Joy-Con.
Chat, what did he got
now,
going
all future
on?
battery replacements will require alcohol to remove, and that's not ideal. The battery is 500 milliamp
This
hours.
nigga putting liquid on
That
battery.
plagued the original Joy-Cons was Joy-Con drift,
He-
where the joystick would get stuck in one direction.
One of
forever.
those.
Luckily, the joystick on the Joy-Con 2 looks very easy to replace. The stick itself unscrews from the housing. It's more like a twist lock than a threaded screw, like a child-proof lid. And there are 2 screws on the backside. And credit to Nintendo, they are fixing the original Joy-Con drift for free, even if your warranty has expired. So I'm glad they're still taking care of customers, and I assume they'll be equally as generous if this new stick starts failing. With the joystick ribbon latch.
I mean, at least this nigga teaching. He'll teach niggas like if they Nintendo 2 get fucked up, they know what part to break down and get type shit. But it's still kind of crazy. If he not gonna put this bitch back together, that's fucked up.
Joy-Con joystick can joyously be removed from the controller without removing the motherboard. Thumbs up for that. And with some pressure, the cap can be pressed back in and twist locked just like it was before. If you do need to go deeper into the controller for some reason, the motherboard has 4 black screws holding it in place, along with 4 gold screws holding the orange magnetical attachment bar to the Joy-Con. There's one more motherboard screw hidden under the final ribbon, and then the Joy-Con motherboard in all her glory can be removed from the Joy-Con. Flipping it over, we see very similar button styles and rubber pad buttons that we've seen in every Nintendo and video game controller design for the past 30 years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The orange mounting bar has another compression spring inside, providing force for the plastic release lever pin. The female Joy-Con contact point for charging and mounting to the Switch 2 body is also extremely modular. This is good since that is a definite wear point. And finally, we get to the optical reader that turns the Joy-Con into a mouse for some of the video games. It has a few of its own compression springs that lift up the steel buttons that double as the magnet attachment points for holding the Joy-Con to the Switch body. The buttons are indeed steel and only painted on the exterior side. I mean, taking apart the Joy-Con 2 is not easy, but also, once you've seen it done, it's not too bad, as long as you keep your screws extremely organized.
They look like the same Switch controller though,
button, it's easiest
unless
to
I'm
compress on
tweaking.
the battery holder first, and then set it down into the rest of the housing. Everything lines up easier that way. The trigger clips in like a little Lego, and obviously my vibrator is no longer with us.
Okay,
but
he
that
is putting it
shouldn't
back
inhibit any
together.
Functionality of the controller overall. Nintendo hardware is surprisingly resilient. And look at that, everything still works. It's time to take apart the main console. But
Oh,
quick side note,
Lord.
normally the worst thing about putting something back together is not being able to see the insides anymore. But with my Teardown skin, you can now have the coolest looking Switch 2 on planet Earth. Plus, we went pretty wild with the Easter eggs this time around, and there's no way you'll be able to find all of them. I'll leave a link down in the description. To get inside the main console of the Switch 2, there are quite a few cleverly hidden screws.
Oh, that's
It's like
hard.
Pokemon Go all over again. Starting with the 2 obvious Phillips head screws at the bottom, Nintendo tried to hide 2 more screws under the colored vinyl plastic strips, but we found them. We only need to remove the 2 on the outside of the magnets at this time. Same thing goes for the orange side. 2 more screws under the plastics on the outsides of the magnets. There's 2 more screws hidden under the long kickstand, and a final screw up at the top near the exhaust vent. I'll remove the deliciously disgusting game card cartridge. Please don't lick this. And the back panel can come free from the Switch 2 housing. There are no springs on the kickstand, just friction that lets the stand hold its place at any point along its route. And so far, the Switch 2 looks very much like the Switch 1. It's got a large turbofan in the center, and metal top plate covering up all the cool looking internals. I'll unplug a few of the signal wires in the center, and unscrew a total of 13 screws that are holding the metal plate and antennas to the Switch 2. The microSD express card slot can unplug like a little Lego. Thankfully, it is totally modular. With the silver backplate gone, the glorious insides are finally revealed. Surprisingly, the side-mounted Joy-Con magnets aren't glued in or anything. It's just a standard rectangular magnet that looks suspiciously like a cabinet door latch. But hey, if it works, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Magnets typically lose about 1% of their strength every 10 years or so these will probably need to be replaced here in a few centuries, so feel free to bookmark this video for later. The battery, however, depending on how often you use it portably, might only last a single decade, and it's super unfortunate that Nintendo has decided to permanently glue the battery to the housing. I'm not a fan of that, so only remove this battery if you absolutely need to, and just be ready to explode. The headphone jack is extremely
Be
modular,
ready
though.
to explode.
We also have the dual lower stereo loudspeakers. These have waterproofing mesh over the openings, but this mesh only protects the speaker itself, not the console. If we go looking for balls, the razor tip of my jerry rig knife is a little flat, so I'll swap the blade around and basically have a brand new razor sharp knife within seconds. I'm biased obviously, but this knife is seriously my favorite, and I carry it with me every day. You should try it. The Nintendo speakers don't have any balls though. I'll remove the 4 screws holding down the copper heat pipe to the processor, and another 6-ish screws holding down the motherboard. There's also 3 screws holding down the turbofan. Then I can slowly pull the massive copper cooling up and away from the motherboard. It's under this heat pipe that we find the large ribbon for the exterior LCD display. So every screen repair will require removing the heat pipe and need new thermal paste unless you're into recycling, like I am. We have pinkish thermal paste connecting the top of the heat pipe to the silver shield we took off earlier, and gray thermal paste connecting the bottom of the heat pipe to the top of the processor, along with quite a few aluminum fins that let the air from the turbofan through to cool down the whole contraption. Supposedly the docking station also has a fan inside to help improve airflow even more when you're upscaling to 4K on a TV. With the screen ribbon removed, the motherboard can now come free from the frame. It's interesting that the vapor chamber isn't actually cooling the processor, it's only attached to the metal shield above the processor. Also, very disappointing that there's no Easter eggs in here. Like, Nintendo owns all the Mario characters, and has access to the Pokemon franchise. They couldn't put a Pikachu in here somewhere? I know Xbox hid a Master Chief inside of their console, and it would be fun if Nintendo could spice things up a bit. Neither the game card slot nor the dual USB-C ports are modular, so if one of those breaks, you're out of luck unless you can solder, but luckily there are 2 USB-C ports for redundancy, and either one should be working without the other. The fan is the same style turbofan that we see in laptops and Red Magic gaming phones, and the battery, even after marinating in alcohol this whole time, is still very permanently attached, all 4,310 mAh. The last thing to check before we durability test what remains of the screen is the male end of the Joy-Con attachment point. This guy is totally modular, which is great since it itself is a mechanical wear point. Besides the battery being glued in, everything else on this Switch 2 appears to be pretty repairable or have redundancy. And it's like a real bummer that Nintendo didn't release a transparent version like they did with the Game Boy Color back in the day, or the old school N64 controllers. I saw a statistic. I saw a stat that said 75%.
At least he putting it back together. I bet.
4 hours every week. And I
Is
feel
it gonna run, though?
that's capable of providing that many hours of quality entertainment deserves to be shown off. Which is why D-Brand and I made the Switch 2 Teardown Skin Ultra Special. There are 17 Easter eggs this time around, and I'll have D-Brand add the insides of the vibrator coils to the Joy-Con skin before we start shipping. And it's all because of Nintendo hardware design that the Switch 2 survives both my durability test and my teardown. And with success like that, it should be illegal to hide the goodies away on the inside. Link is down in the description. Speaking of illegal, we did remove the plastic screen protector from earlier. And the only way to truly tell if the Switch 2 screen is going to scatter into bits if we shatter it is if we shatter it.
Ah, man. Nah. Hold on. Wait, gang. Chill. Yo.
After
I mean,
15
at least
hits,
it's
the
durable.
pop off, and I'm starting to think there isn't any glass, and the whole thing is shatterproof plastic.
That's good, though. That's good, because there's going to be a lot of kids that get these Switch 2s for Christmas, and you know they like to throw their shit and bang it against the wall and all type of shit, so at least it won't break. This nigga banging this shit full force with a metal wrench, and it's not breaking. I think that's a good test.
Another 14 very solid hits, and the Switch 2
He hit it 27 times. Okay, he going at it again. Let's see.
15 more and
15 more. Nothing happened.
If watching this doesn't give you confidence in the Switch
Okay.
2 durability,
Okay,
nothing will.
that bitch durable. He say he needs to throw that motherfucker in the trash.
Only after
Oh,
50
shit.
hits from
Okay.
ridiculously large pliers,
50
you can see
hits
that
from
indeed
large
there is
pliers.
a thin layer of glass on the surface.
And a thin
as
layer
you can see
broke.
from the slow motion, Nintendo was right, and it does indeed explode into little needle-like shards of glass without that laminate top layer.
Okay.
So I would definitely leave yours intact and in place. Most of the glass is still glued to the LCD, but there are still plenty of free shards
Plenty
of
of
pulverized
yeah.
glass and dust that could embed themselves into little kids' fingers or eyeballs. So I'm glad that Nintendo has a top layer.
So
and
that
knows
top
what you should
layer,
do.
a lot of the kids
Even though
can't
I
pull
did get
that
a black
off.
screen of death. After a quick reset, Nintendo says it was just kidding about being game over and is
Some of
ready
his
to keep
ass
on
tweaking.
playing.
He definitely tweaking,
Basically,
though.
Invincible. I'm a big fan of the Nintendo Switch 2.
But this
Grab the
nigga got a
Teardown
million
screen,
views in 23 hours. I don't think he tweaking for real. He could buy like 16 more of them bitches, even though they not even releasing them. He could go to the back of the fucking factory and get them hoes. This nigga got 10 million subs. He said he got that for free. I know he did. Somebody, it's a sponsor or some shit. They probably sponsored him for a durability test on that motherfucker.